The Ford Taurus turned into a jelly bean. The Vector M12 tried to be a supercar and failed before lunch. The 90s gave us CD players and Game Boys, but not every car was a win. Some were so bad they killed entire brands, ruined reputations, or just flat out embarrassed the driver. These are the 14 cars from the 90s that flopped as hard as a Windows 95 demo at a Mac store. Number 14, 1995 Suzuki X90. If a Hot Wheels car came to life during a fever dream, you'd get the Suzuki X90. 2 doors, T-top roof, rear-wheel drive. It was trying so hard to be everything at once that it forgot to be anything people actually wanted. Suzuki marketed it as a sporty mini SUV, but it had no back seat, barely any trunk space, and a laughably small 1.6-liter 4-cylinder engine that pushed out just 95 horsepower. That's not sporty, that's sad. It handled more like a go-kart on stilts thanks to its awkward center of gravity. And with that tiny body and goofy styling, most people didn't know whether to drive it or display it in a comic book shop. Sales flopped immediately. Only a few thousand were sold before Suzuki gave up and pulled the plug in under 2 years. These days, the X90 pops up mostly in ugliest car lists, and once as a Red Bull promo car with a giant can strapped to the roof, which honestly made it more useful. Number 13, 1997. Chevy Malibu tried to revive a classic with the Malibu nameplate. What they delivered was a car that looked good in ads and broke hearts in real life. This was supposed to be a fresh, reliable mid-size sedan to rival Toyota and Honda. But under all that marketing sparkle was a minefield of mechanical problems. Owners reported everything from power steering failures to complete engine shutdowns, sometimes at highway speeds. The interior didn't age well either. Dashboard plastic warped in the sun. Window switches failed. Seats flattened out like pancakes. And then there were the mysterious electrical gremlins, radio flickering, dome lights going rogue, and fuses blowing for no reason. It had a V6 that technically made 155 horsepower, but in reality, it felt sluggish and wheezy, like it was always one pothole away from giving up. Chevy put everything into promoting this car except the quality. And once the problems stacked up, even loyal GM buyers started jumping ship. Number 12, 1993 Ford Aspire. The Aspire was supposed to be Ford's answer to cheap, fuel-efficient imports. What they delivered was a car that felt like it was built in a weekend. It had a microscopic 1.3-liter engine that could barely get out of its own way, just 63 horsepower. That meant 0 to 60 in, eventually. It wasn't just slow, it was bare bones to the point of comedy. Manual windows, no air conditioning unless you paid extra, and an interior so plastic it felt like sitting inside a Tupperware container. And it wasn't cute either. It had the kind of blobfish styling that made you apologize just for parking it. Safety-wise? Sure, it had dual airbags, but if you ever needed those airbags, you'd probably wish you were in anything else. The Aspire sold for cheap, but most owners quickly realized it wasn't a bargain. It was a warning. Ford discontinued it after a short run, and barely anyone noticed. Number 11, 1999. Cadillac Catera wanted to lure in younger buyers with something sleek, European, and sporty. So they rebadged an Opel Omega from Germany, added some leather, and called it the Catera. It even had a mascot, a cartoon duck named Ziggy, because the tagline was "the caddy that zigs." Cringe. From the outside, it looked fine, but once people got behind the wheel, things went downhill fast. The car was underpowered, the suspension felt soft and vague, and reliability was a total mess. Oil leaks, sensor failures, coolant system nightmares. Repairs piled up fast and weren't cheap. Worse, the Catera didn't feel like a Cadillac. No sense of luxury, no prestige. Just a weird in-between car that couldn't decide if it was a sporty Euro sedan or a grocery getter with branding issues. It bombed so badly, Cadillac retired it after just a few years. The name, the duck, the marketing, all of it faded into obscurity and good riddance. Number 10, 1991. Chevy Lumina. APV, minivans were huge in the 90s, and Chevy wanted a piece of the action. But instead of playing it safe, they delivered this, an angular plastic spaceship on wheels. The Lumina APV looked like it drove straight out of a sci-fi B-movie. That long sloping nose? Weird. The narrow headlights? Weird. The overall vibe? Very weird. But it wasn't just the looks that killed it. The APV had serious steering problems that made it feel unstable on the highway. Visibility was poor. The driving position was awkward. And while Chrysler's minivans were evolving and getting better every year, Chevy was doubling down on the plastic fantastic vibe, and families weren't buying it. The interior was roomy, but everything felt like it would crack or warp after a summer in the sun. Even with decent engine options, the Lumina APV couldn't overcome the bad press or the bad first impressions. It never recovered from its design sins, and Chevy quietly replaced it with something far more forgettable. Number 9. 1992 Eagle Premier. The Eagle Premier was supposed to be a game changer for Chrysler. Built with help from Renault, it had a sleek European design and a big interior. But all that promise went out the window once people actually drove the thing. It was plagued with electrical issues, dashboard failures, and a general sense that every part had been rushed. Under the hood, it had decent power for the time, but reliability was a constant struggle. Sensors failed, power locks stopped locking. Owners found themselves taking it to the shop more than the grocery store. And to make matters worse, finding parts was like playing a losing round of automotive hide-and-seek. The Eagle brand never really found its identity, and the Premier became a symbol of that confusion. It was discontinued in the early 90s and quickly forgotten, except by the unlucky few who bought one and spent the next few years fixing it again and again. Number 8. 1990 Yugo Cabrio. If you think the regular Yugo was bad, meet its convertible cousin, the Cabrio. This car was already a punchline, but the drop-top version took it to a new level. The folding roof was overly complex and broke often. The carbureted engine was outdated even by 1980 standards. And the build quality? Let's just say there were lawnmowers with better reliability. It was slow, shaky, and didn't handle well at any speed. Road noise was constant. Parts fell off. The interior looked like it came from a toy store clearance rack. Even for budget shoppers, the Cabrio was a stretch. Only a handful were ever sold in the US before Yugo pulled the plug entirely. Looking back, it wasn't just a bad car, it was a reminder that not every brand deserves a shot at the convertible market. This wasn't fun in the sun. It was suffering with a sunroof. Number 7. 1998 Vector M12. If confidence alone could sell cars, the Vector M12 would have outsold Ferrari. It looked like a supercar, came with a Lamborghini-sourced V12 engine, and was hyped as an American exotic that would dominate Europe. But once the rubber met the road, everything fell apart, literally. The M12 was a maintenance nightmare. The engine was powerful on paper, but paired with a gearbox that felt like it was programmed by guesswork. It overheated constantly. The interior was cheap for a car in its price range, and basic reliability was laughable. Doors didn't align, panels rattled, and servicing one was like trying to fix a spaceship with IKEA tools. Only 17 were ever made before the company went bankrupt, and each one became a cautionary tale. It promised cutting-edge aerospace performance and delivered breakdowns and bankruptcy instead. The M12 wasn't a Ferrari killer, it was a budget black hole. Number 6. 1999 Land Rover Discovery 2. The Land Rover Discovery 2 was built to conquer mountains, deserts, jungles, you name it. Unfortunately, it had trouble just making it out of the driveway. This SUV looked tough, and off-road it sometimes lived up to that promise. But on the road, it fell apart. The Discovery 2 was plagued with electrical gremlins, dashboard lights going haywire, windows refusing to work, keyless entry failing. Underneath, the suspension system was fragile, the head gaskets blew early, and the drivetrain made owners weep. Mechanics dreaded seeing them pull in. It became so bad that Land Rover had to rebrand later models just to escape the name's toxic reputation in the US. And with poor fuel economy, high repair bills, and constant breakdowns, even die-hard fans started looking elsewhere. The Discovery 2 wanted to be rugged luxury, but it ended up being a very expensive test of patience. Number 5. 1990 Geostorm. You know a car's in trouble when even people forgetting it existed is a kindness. The Geostorm tried to capture the compact sports car crowd. It was supposed to be affordable, fun, and sporty looking. And to be fair, it did look kind of cool, at least at a distance. But once you drove it, the cracks showed fast. It was built by Isuzu but branded under GM's short-lived Geo name. Under the hood, it lacked power. Inside, it felt tinny and rattled on rough roads. The handling was okay, but the steering felt vague and body roll was real. Worst of all, it didn't compete well with its Japanese rivals. The Honda CRX and Toyota Celica ran circles around it in quality and performance. The Storm was a quick fix in a time when GM desperately needed something exciting. But instead of thunder, it gave us a quiet, forgettable drizzle. Number 4. 1991 Saturn SS Series. Saturn was launched by GM with a lot of hope and a lot of cash. It was supposed to be a whole new kind of car company. Transparent pricing, friendly dealerships, a clean break from the old-school Big Three. But the cars? Not so revolutionary. The S-Series had dent-resistant plastic body panels and decent fuel economy, but everything else felt cheap. The base SL1 had 85 horsepower. The interior was plastic-heavy and aged badly. And while Saturn bragged about innovation, the cars themselves barely changed year to year. Worse, once they started breaking down, owners found out parts weren't as easy to come by as other GM brands. People wanted Saturn to work, but the product just didn't deliver. And as competitors evolved, Saturn stood still. The S Series wasn't a total disaster, but it wasn't the savior GM needed either. The brand faded out in the 2000s, and today, the S Series is a relic of a bold experiment that never really took off. Number 3. 1994. Dodge Ram Van Dodge tried to freshen up their full-size van in the early 90s, but they forgot one important step, actually updating it. The 1994 Dodge Ram van was basically the same vehicle they'd been making since the 1970s. New face, same dinosaur under the skin. The dashboard looked like it came out of a time machine from 1978. The build quality was below average, even for the era. Rust was common, interior pieces snapped off, and while the engines were strong, everything else felt ancient. No modern safety features, no refinement, and trying to drive it long distances felt like riding a brick on wheels. Fleet managers liked it because it was cheap, but families and businesses started moving toward vans that didn't sound like they were going to explode at 55 miles per hour. Dodge kept it alive out of stubbornness, but the Ram van was already a fossil by the time the 2000s rolled around. Number 2. 1996 Ford Taurus. This one hurt. The original Ford Taurus was a hit, sleek, futuristic, and a legit revolutionary in the 1980s. But by 1996, Ford got a little too confident and redesigned the Taurus into whatever this was. Ovals. Ovals everywhere. Oval grille, oval windows, oval interior vents. It looked like it had been designed entirely with a cookie cutter. Customers were confused, and not in a good way. Sales tanked immediately. And then came the mechanical issues. Transmission failures, electrical problems, fit and finish that felt rushed. Rental fleets scooped them up in bulk, but regular buyers turned to the competition. Toyota and Honda were making better, quieter, more reliable sedans, and Ford was over here giving us an egg with wheels. By 1997, the Taurus had lost its crown as America's best-selling car, and it never got it back. Ford tried to fix it in later models, but the damage was done. The 1996 Taurus wasn't just a flop, it was a fall from grace. Number 1. 1990 Pontiac 6000 AWD. You'd think an all-wheel drive, rally-inspired American sedan would be awesome. Enter the Pontiac 6000 AWD, a car that sounded exciting, but drove like a refrigerator. GM wanted to take on sporty European sedans like Audi, but they showed up late and underprepared. The 6000 AWD was heavy. It was underpowered. It handled like a boat. And while it had cool digital gauges and a stiffer suspension, none of that mattered when the car felt like it was working against you. The AWD system added weight but didn't really improve performance. And worse, the thing was expensive. People wanted affordable performance. The 6000 AWD gave them slow, clunky, and frustrating. General Motors discontinued it quietly, hoping everyone would just forget it ever existed. And most people did. But for those who bought one, let's just say they probably didn't stay loyal to Pontiac much longer. So there you have it, 14 cars from the 90s that flopped harder than a cassette tape in 2025. Some tried to be bold, others were just bad. And a few? So awful, they're weirdly iconic now. Which one's the worst in your book, or did you actually drive one of these? Let us know in the comments below.